Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad that you're joining us for our show again this week. We're always glad that there are people like you out there that are interested in what's happening in our cities. Because it is important for good government that you have people that are responding back and forth with the things that the city council and the city staff are doing. You need a good flow of information back and forth. So we're glad that you're interested. If you haven't watched our show before, every week we'll have somebody from one of the 9 cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area talking about the current issues that are going on in that city. And we encourage you to take the time to write down the email and the phone numbers of the people in case you've got it's an area that kind of resonates with you and you might have questions about it, or that you might want to give comments. From time to time, we'll also have on groups that interact with all of our cities, like our legislators or the Northwest Hennepin Human Services Council. Tonight, we're going to be learning about the issues in the city of Osseo. And I'm very glad to welcome Dwayne Poppe back to our show.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, the mayor of Osseo.
Yes.
So we're glad that you're back on again and that you can kind of fill us in on some of the things that are happening in Osseo. Now, you already know that I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself out to our wider audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself. And I always ask people to kind of tuck in maybe why you got actively involved, why you took the time to run for your city offices.
Okay. I'm Duane Poppe. I'm the mayor of the city of Osseo. In Osseo, the mayor is a 2-year term, so I was elected 2 years ago, just finishing up my first 2-year term, and then was fortunate enough to get reelected this past November, so I have another 2 years. And previous to that, I was on the city council for 3 years. So I've been in the Osseo city government now 5 years. We've lived in Osseo this. The end of this month, we'll be there for 15 years.
Oh, that's
15 years, yeah. 15 years we'll have lived there.
Yeah, and, quite a while.
So it's my wife and I, and then we have 3 children, 12, 10, and 7. So they keep us active between their activities and, of course, work and then their sports and city government, so yeah.
So what got you interested in becoming more active in your city government?
My job I do commercial real estate.
Okay.
And, we sat through different city council meetings and things kind of across the city and different projects that we would do to get approvals for, developments and other things. So it was just kind of one thing that, I've always had an interest in and kind of watching what was going on within the city.
Right.
I just felt at that time, I felt I had some expertise I could lend. And just kind of looking at the way things were, I just said, now is the time, to get involved and, and try to help and, kind of right the ship a bit. And, so we're fortunate enough to do that. And, it's been going all right.
Good.
So.
And then I'm asking everybody this year to tell a little bit about the early history of your city. Maybe some things about early Osseo that people probably don't know.
Well, Osseo, if you look at it, it was kind of originally discovered by Pierre Bottineau.
Okay.
I think you see, Bottineau Transit Way and some of his name kind of around. We have, so he was kind of the first person to kind of discover that region, if you will. Then it was, that was early 1800s. So then about 1854 is when the first settlers kind of came to that area, and they set up a settlement, and they actually called it Palestine. There.
Okay.
And then it was in 1858. Then they changed the name to Osseo. But then it wasn't until 1875 is an act of the state legislature where it turned it into the actual city of Osseo.
Oh, you must be one of the older cities around.
Oh yes, it was one of the kind of the first cities out there.
Right.
And then what's interesting is then shortly thereafter is a city just kind of south of where Osseo started, which was about right where City Hall is.
Okay.
Kind of right at that part of town.
Sure.
And kind of just south of there was actually another town attraction. And then that was started about where the Holiday gas station is. So then over time, then they actually combine those two towns into the city of Osseo. And kind of way back in the day, Osseo was, their big production there was wood. Because everything kind of west of there, it was kind of the last of the prairie, starting of the big woods, they called them.
Right.
So and that was kind of eventually what Maple Grove turned into, because it was a big maple grove of trees, and they harvested lumber out of there and brought it back to the Minneapolis for different products and things.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's kind of the history of Osseo, and it was kind of the stop between Minneapolis to Osseo to St. Cloud. So it used to kind of just go right on through.
Now we'll switch to the future and the current redevelopments that are happening in Osseo, and you've got a lot of different things going.
Yeah, we've got 8 projects.
Yeah, so we'll kind of take them one at a time. And you've been working on some apartments that are right downtown, right on Main Street, and I've got a phase 1 and a phase 2. Do they have a name?
Yep, 5 Central is the name of the project.
Okay. So can you tell us about that? When and why did this project begin?
Well, this project actually started a number of years ago.
Okay.
It was, it was scattered site housing that was originally kind of pooled together through various grants and things over time. Because we looked at, if you look at the long-term comprehensive plan for the city, it looked to having density up and down Central Avenue.
Right.
So that was one thing. Originally, there was a look of maybe doing some townhomes there, like they did on the other side of the street, just a little further north.
Right.
But as the kind of the market fundamental shift over time, with the really kind of multifamily really becoming kind of the asset class that really made the most sense, where you can get the most density and kind of the most bang for your buck from a city's perspective. So we went out and we solicited proposals from different developers on what to do with that site. Originally, phase 1 was just on the backside of Central Avenue, on First Avenue Northwest, and it was a 69 unit apartment project. Okay. Is what we talked about, and then during the discussions with that, we said, well, there's a couple more homes, a gas station, a service center, some other buildings on Central Avenue. We said, based on the market studies, we said, is there an opportunity to do a larger project here? Right. So based on their market fundamentals, they said, yeah, I think this market, the city of Osseo, could support 140 units. So the first phase was 69 units. That opened up in July. And they're market rate apartments. Okay. I know there was a lot of discussion that, because there's a low to moderate income component in that, because of some of the grants that were received. Right. So there's just a handful of units. It's like 6 or 8 units have to be that, but the rest of them are market rate. And then because of the market forces, we decided, yep, we'll do phase 2. So phase 1 opened in July, and as soon as it was opened, it was almost 90% occupied. That's pretty good. Yeah, right out of the chutes. And then it since is filled up. And then now phase 2, which is another 71 units, so it'll be 140 total. That'll be open, they hope probably April. So they're coming on the ground. I mean, the challenge they're having right now is just because the site is so compact and with the crane and moving materials. That's why we ended up closing 4th or 3rd Street on the south side, just so they could do some staging. So I mean, just because the site now is maxed. So and then once the project is done, they're kind of starting from the north side, working to the south, and then working west, and eventually then they'll connect the 2 buildings, and you'll never notice that there was 2 buildings originally, because they've got the hallways already stubbed in the first phase and thing in anticipation that they're going to have phase 2. So it'll bring more density, more people, and what's really significant about the whole project is it just really brings in a different demographic than we've had in Osseo. So you're talking to the management company, and most of them are millennials that are renting in the apartments. So you're having some of the people from the Targets, the Olympus, and some of the businesses that are coming in Brooklyn Park, and it's just kind of natural for them to have a place there. So I mean and once it's fully occupied, it's going to change the population of Osseo about 10%.
Oh, that's a significant increase, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really kind of a big deal for the city, so.
And it'll bring in people at kind of the beginning stages of things
Yep.
that can keep rippling on through your city, right?
Yep, and there are, some people that are moving out of their homes, making way for younger families. So I mean, you're starting to see, kind of the generational shift within
Right.
Osseo. I mean, typically we've always been, a little more heavily weighted, on the 65 and older. I think Hennepin County is about 25% on average,
Right.
and in Osseo we're about 35, so we're about 10% higher within our city limits than kind of the county average. So, but.
Okay, well that explains that, and people are not been in Osseo for a while. They'll see that construction going on.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yep. Phase 1's done, and Phase 2 is.
Right.
They have they hope to have half the roof on the second phase. They hope January, probably right after the holidays.
Then we'll move to a slightly different part of town, along Highway 81, and I got to make sure I got this right.
Ceramic industrial coatings.
Custom Industrial Ceramics.
Yeah.
It's a building that's on 81, and kind of where, can you pinpoint it for people?
Yep, it's kind of 81 kind of runs,
At an
diagonal.
angle.
Yeah,
At an angle.
Kind
right.
of called the South Side, if you will.
Right.
Across from the American Legion.
Okay.
It's a business that's been in Osseo for years and years and years, and they came to us, a couple of years ago, and they had the lot. I would say, west of them. It's kind of northwest, but west of them, and there used to be a auto sale place there, and then they had kind of an old building in the back that they just stored things and stuff. And what was one thing challenging with that site is that Hennepin County owned storm sewer bifurcated the site, so we actually had to work with Hennepin County to get the storm sewer relocated. And that's one thing with Hennepin County is they want to get away from maintaining and servicing storm sewers. They want to push it to the cities.
Sure.
So then part of that agreement was that then we would take over the responsibility of that pipe once they moved it. And then also running right along their building, we had a water line that came off our old water tower, our south water tower, which isn't in use anymore, but was still part of the loop. So we ended up relocating that water line around the edge of the site, getting it away from their building, combining those two lots because you can't build over lot lines.
Right.
And then, based on needs of their expanding business, they needed to put on, it was a 20,000 square foot
That's significant.
addition
Right.
of, just a warehouse
Right.
so they can expand their production and then do warehousing in there. So, I mean, it's great to see businesses in Osseo expanding.
Oh, definitely. And that'll add more jobs too in
Yep.
your city.
Yep.
And then there's a small strip mall along 81 that is across from the building we just talked about, right?
Yep.
So in the same area of the city.
Yep. Yeah. Over last couple of years, I mean, 81. I mean, that's been an area that we've had discussion of. It's kind of the gateway of the city as you come off 169, and there was some plans in the comprehensive plan to really turn that into more retail focused, up and down the strip. But I think, that comprehensive plans that the city made a number of years ago with the amount of retail, I don't think we'll ever have as much retail as people anticipated. Because I could just think the way retail is being delivered now, there's not as so many stores.
Right.
So that was one thing we looked at is, how can we kind of dress up, that, but still, provide jobs and, provide a nice kind of entrance to the community. So on the, there's been a number of businesses that have kind of done it over the last few years. I mean, with Lynn's and their remodel, taking down those buildings, and then when we did 5 Central, the apartment project, there was an old fireplace store there. That was Tim's Plumbing. They've moved there, renovated kind of that front of that building, So and then on the north side, next to this, where this retail strip center is going, is basically right across the street from the Legion on the north side there. And a number of years ago, Premier Liquor, which is right there, went and put an addition on the south side of their project, kind of redid the front of their building.
Yeah.
And then this retail project, different owner, will then add on its 3-stall apartment, retail project, kind of mirroring kind of the parapet look, and so it looked like all one big store, and that really kind of eliminates that old, used to be an old Kentucky Fried Chicken,
Right.
and then a bunch of different auto, sales places. So it really
Dress
helps kind
up-
of clean up that place.
Kind of
and
dress
then-
it up and
Yeah, and then the fence in the back, they're redoing that. And, I mean, just kind of just cleaning up that whole area there.
yeah, because that's right. The first thing people see when they come into Osseo
Yeah.
on 81, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay, now we got one more to go, I think.
Okay.
Or maybe I've got a couple more. No, I got a couple more. There's the Villas of Osseo. It's a nursing home.
Yep.
Now, where is that located?
Yep, that's on Fifth Avenue
Okay.
and in Broadway, just south of Broadway there.
And what are they planning, and what is
Yep.
going to happen with that?
Yeah, the Villas of Osseo, that's the old Berkshire.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
and it's changed names now. It's a care group out of Chicago that bought it. The villas, they have a number of villas
Right,
around.
right.
And and so they're renovating the actual the current facility.
Okay.
But they also broke ground on the north side. They had some vacant space, and what they're doing there is a 20,000 square foot addition.
Okay.
And it'll be short-term care rehab, like if you break your hip and you need to go do
right.
some rehab before they send you home.
Right.
So those are the type of services and that they'll have in that. And looking at the plans, I mean, it's going to be very nice. I mean, it's just another great asset to have in the city for our residents, but not only
yeah.
our own, but really kind of the Northwest
Right.
Metro, having that ability to have that kind of service here locally.
Yeah, and they're looking at more medical services being needed as our population ages
Correct.
too. So
Yep.
that'll be a plus for Osseo.
Yep.
Now, are there other areas of the city that the city council staff are looking at for redeveloping?
Yeah, we're always kind of poking around.
Uh-huh.
One thing, we've talked on the EDA, a number of years ago was, they've kind of held a lot of land,
Okay.
for a number of years, kind
Right.
of trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. One parcel in particular was the old community center that was kind of south of the water tower.
Okay.
It's been a vacant lot for 10, 12 years. And then the city had bought a couple of homes south of that like 30 years ago. So you've had this
Oh, a long time.
vacant parcel
Right.
just sitting there. And
Right.
that's actually where we built the gun range,
Uh-huh.
the Osseo Gun Club. That just opened up beginning of the month.
Oh, right.
So
right.
that's open. So that's a brand new building, and that's another 3 parcels that were city owned, but now generating revenue for the city, long term. So there's a couple other EDA parcels that we're looking at. Is what can really go there? Is there
Right.
is there something bigger that we can do, kind of like when we did with 5 Central? We're also looking at some different opportunities. Is there a bigger project we can do somewhere? Is there some assemblage that we can start now? I know we've looked at, there's the site out by the baseball field, the Celtic Crossings. They originally planned 4 buildings there, and they built 2 of them. They still have site for 2 more in the clubhouse.
Right.
So I mean, is that an opportunity to begin those discussions? Can we kind of get that programmed up and online? There's some other things along 81, based on business needs.
Now, you're also needing to do some major sanitary sewer reconstruction too. And what is the condition of your sewers, and how old are they?
Yep, that was again part of our kind of our study is
Right.
We look at with the roads, but then we also look at sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water.
Right.
So as we do different projects in the city, we're not doing a water and then 2 years later doing a street.
Right,
I mean, doing a street and then come back and dig it up. I mean, just that doesn't look good for anybody.
No.
And it's just frankly a waste of money. So we've been pretty conscious on, looking at all of our utilities and seeing, trying to do things step by step. And part of our sanitary sewer was actually goes down kind of the, if you take Central Avenue, which is kind of the main street,
right.
and the whole west side of town, goes up County Road 30, down First, and then it actually kind of went mid-block for 4 blocks, connected to the main trunk that went down and to the lift station out of town.
Uh-huh.
So you had this trunk that went basically through neighborhoods.
Oh, okay.
3 to 5 feet from people's basements. That was actually like a culvert pipe.
Right.
Metal culvert pipe, which makes no sense to me why you'd make a sanitary sewer out
Right.
of metal.
Right.
So, I mean, that thing was getting pretty bad, and it was undersized capacity, especially since we, building the phase 1 to phase 2, the capacity once that was up, our existing
right.
sanitary sewer
Right.
could not handle that capacity. So we slipped, there's a tube that you can slip down through the metal pipe and expand it, and it hardens like a PVC, like a plastic pipe. So we slipped that pipe for structural integrity of that
Right.
line to keep
Right.
that open for all the homes there. And then that's what we ended up doing and then we also, pipe burst is another, where we pounded another pipe out on County Road 30, expand that, and then down First Avenue and 4th Street.
Okay.
That was our major street project this year where we dug that up. And then we're doing new sidewalks, curbs, gutters.
Oh, at the same time.
Everything, and that's where we ended up. They got the curbs, driveway aprons done, but then they ran out of time for cement for the sidewalks, so they didn't get any sidewalks in this year. And then also that was we kind of got whipsawed there a bit with the snowstorm that in the cold weather got hit, so shut down the asphalt plants.
Right.
So we're actually, we just have an aggregate base for the streets right now. So in the spring they have to come back and finish that road and finish the sidewalks and landscaping and put the first lift and then the second lift. So that one's got a little bit more to do.
Right.
So that one.
So what's the timeline for that project for when you hope to get it done?
It'll hopefully, hope to be in there when the road restrictions lift. So that'll be April.
Right.
Probably
when they
May.
can get going on
Yeah.
it.
So I mean, it's probably another month, probably. So hopefully it's wrapped up by Memorial Day. But. We'll see. It all depends on the weather. If it's
right, and there's a
still
lot
snowing.
of factors. A lot of factors.
Yeah.
Who knows what we're going to have this time around,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. And we made a conscious effort, a number of years ago, that I said, you know what, a large percentage of our budget is LGA, local government aid.
Oh, right, and that's the issue I want you to talk a little bit about.
And that's money that comes from the state, and that was, designed for, metro, but really kind of outstate communities to be able to help fund their governments, to help for fire and police and everything else. So there's a formula that's all made up, from the state, and I mean, nobody can ever figure it out, it seems like, but they just say, here's the amount of money you're going to get. So in the city of Osseo, it's just over 600,000, which is about a third of our budget.
Okay.
And the way the budget was structured before is they were using the LGA to help fund some of the general government.
Ongoing
expenses. And I said, this makes no sense.
Well, yeah, because how volatile the LGA was over like maybe 10 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was, here's what you promise, here's what you give. And it's like, I'm like, you can't count on this.
Yeah.
So I said, what we're going to do, and we're going to make an effort, and that's what we've done every year, is we said, we're going to figure out how to take our budget and the money that we collect, we're going to run our government, and then the money we get for LGA, we're going to put all in our capital programs. So then if they decide to cut it, we can still operate our government, but our projects are going to be delayed.
Right.
And then we have the ability then hopefully go to the state and say, hey, we need a little money. I mean, otherwise we can't buy a fire truck, we can't buy a plow truck, we can't fix our roads, So being able to position ourselves to kind of say, hey, we're not using LGA to fund our government, we're using our LGA to fund our, our future projects. We're being fiscally responsible enough to run our government with just on the little money that we get from our small little community. So, and next year, and that's why you have these little bit of increases each year into the capital, because we're trying to slowly get it up to what it's equal to the LGA.
So you've been doing this for a few years now.
Yeah, it's been 5 years. We've been kind of on that course since I was on the council on the budget and finance, and then as mayor, we just continue to kind of plan for the future. And that's also because you looked at our budget before we got there, it was about $100,000 or less a year was being set aside for future capital projects. And then you looked at storm sewer, sanitary water funds were all minuscule or negative in most of those. Those are all stabilized now. And now we're doing, it's over $600,000 a year we're putting aside for future capital, which a majority of it is roads.
Oh, sure.
And then there's a small equipment portion of that, and then parks. But I mean, a majority of it goes to future road projects, and that's actually how we're able to do so many roads. As we talked earlier with the mill and overlay, is we're actually then going to do a bond, but our monies that are already going into that portion is about half of what the bond payment would be, and we can do a bond and be able to do a majority of that and still keep a healthy fund balance and still have those monies set aside to pay for that, and we don't have to assess people for it.
Right.
So that was really kind of a way we can get it done. So I mean,
well, and those are, people always want the services the city gives, but then they get a little excited about the taxes. But as long as you're delivering a good value for the money that people pay you in taxes.
Yep. I mean, you look at our levy's been down from before we got there, and I mean we're slowly kind of creeping back up to those levels because we're kind of planning for the future.
Oh,
but,
right.
I mean you're down a few $100,000 from what it was before on a $2 million budget. I mean it's pretty significant. So I mean we're able to lower it and then kind of start raising it up, but yet kind of plan for the future at the same time.
So that budget is underway, and as you get into the new year, then you'll start all over again.
We ratify our budget on Monday, December 22nd or whatever that Monday is. So we didn't do it at the first meeting because we, with the truth and taxation hearing that we had, we wanted to see if there's some additional input.
Oh, definitely.
And then we've actually, we've kind of took a deeper dive into it again and then tweaked it and turned the dials and played around with it a little bit. So it's going to be revised again, and we're going to bring it down a little lower, than what we want. So I think we'll end up maybe about 2% up, So
which is a reasonable amount, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, you got to plan for the future.
Definitely. So. Okay, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your ideas with us. It helps people to learn what's happening in other cities, but particularly for Osseo, if anybody has a particular interest in any of the topics we talked about, I'm sure you'll be happy to have them contact you either by email or phone, right?
Yep, it's on the website.
So we'll encourage them to do that.
All right.
And then tune in next week for part 2 of Osseo's issues. We're glad that you've been with us, and we'll be looking forward to you rejoining us. And